It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thanks for the organisers for inviting me. I'm here representing the British Society of Plant Pathology today. And there's a couple of things I want to tell you about that were new initiatives by the Society. The first one is an audit where we looked at plant pathology in the UK as we stand at the moment. Another one which I'll move through as part of this talk is the future, which is inspiring these future generations. But before I get on to that, because there's, I guess, more plant scientists than plant pathologists in the audience, I'll give you a little bit of a feel of the past and how important plant pathology is. And I was agonizing how far back I go. So I decided to go back as far as biblical times. And apologies, you can tell from my Irish accent where I'm from, that when I start to quote from the Bible, I tend to sound like the Reverend Ian Paisley. But if you download, you can download Bible apps onto your smartphones. And if you do a search for blasts or mildews, which are two very important plant diseases, you will get into double figures for the number of occurrences they have within the Bible. If you search for a good human disease, a good biblical human disease, such as boils, you will get 2 or 3. In many examples, there are more occurrences of plant disease in the Bible than human diseases. Very important to remember this. Coming up a little bit further in time, I guess, we go back to the Romans. The Romans realized how important plant pathology is. In fact, they actually sacrificed human beings to preserve their crops, to protect them from diseases. So you can imagine reading in someone's tombstones, here lies Marcus Sabinus, died to save our carrots. A glorious way to go. So it's really, really important that even they, back then, we haven't got that far, by the way, in the UK, protecting our crops, thankfully, but they are incredibly important. A little bit further up to date, we're sort of whisking you through history here. Coming up to 752 AD, this was an Empress Kokin who was looking at a field of plants at the height of summer. Now, these plants should have been bright green, whereas in fact, as this empress came along each day, they were turning yellow right before the rise. And this is actually a very characteristic symptom of plant virus infection. They're turning yellow, they're turning sick. And this, we reckon, is the first ever recorded instance of a plant virus disease. I could say it's the first ever instance of a member of the royal family talking to plants. Something that's continued to this very day. Though if you saw Prince Charles in the Countryfile edition, he says he no longer talks to his plants, he instructs them. Very important definition. Okay, a little bit further up, this is the 1600s. This is a phenomenon which you all probably heard of, tulipomania. This is a picture from the John Paul Getty Museum. It's worth millions. It's from a Dutch master, and it shows a tulip bulb, which should be bright red, but in fact has these white streaks going across them. They have this colour breaking. And these were all the rage. But back in the 1600s, you're worried about the euro these days, or Greece, or Cyprus, or God forbid Ireland bringing down the European currency. Back then, it was tulip bulbs which were destroying the currency. Everybody wanted one of these bulbs. But the problem was they were quite rare, quite hard to breed. In fact, impossible to breed, because they're caused by a plant virus. They didn't know about plant viruses back then. So this is what was prepared to be exchanged for one single bulb, more than what that picture is worth today. So we've got 8 fat oxen, 4 fat oxen, 8 fat sheep, etc., etc. It always intrigues me what one bed with accessories is. Throw your other half in as well. But that's about the only good thing I can show you that a plant pathogen can do. In the vast majority of cases, plant pathogens can have devastating effects. They can have devastating effects in whole countries. In fact, some countries which have given you some of the most intelligent, most beautiful... Okay, it's coming. Okay, Irish potato famine. Ireland, as you well know, the land of the best drink in the world, Guinness. Leprechauns, of course. Normally at this point I say we're also the land of the best rugby team, but we had the most appalling season this year. So even Scotland did better than us. And of course the humble potato. And we all know that, from your history lessons, it got hit by Phytophthora infestans. And we had this devastating disease. And during this period, the population dropped from 8 million to 5 million. That's quite amazing that the Irish population still hasn't recovered. Population of Ireland is below 5 million. If you go back over to Ireland now, and you think, wow, this lovely empty place, it was more full back then. more highly populated. To show you the devastating effects plant diseases can have and the terrible unforeseen consequences, so we had this devastating effects on the potatoes. Of course, I can now say some of these things because I'm safe in Scotland. The terrible English landlords kicked out the Irish from their cottages. I think I'm reasonably safe today. You can see here a typical Irishman living in a hedgerow. Even though he's been kicked out of his cottage because he can't pay his rent from his potato crop, he still remembered to bring his beer, and he's drinking his beer here. We also had lots of people moved into workhouses. Now, the English had a policy where they would not just give food. You had to work for your food. They didn't believe straight in charity. So a lot of people died on these particular projects, which were invented by the English because you had to actually work before you were allowed to be fed. And these are called the roads to nowhere. They were invented by the English just to make people work. They start off in a bog in the middle of Ireland. They'll go straight as a die for 2 miles and then in a bog. And lots of people died on those particular projects. As well as that, we also had a huge outpouring of immigration. And lots of people died on those particular ships, the coffin ships. Basically, if you had any sort of boat or dinghy, you started bringing people to America or Australia or Canada, even though your boat couldn't cope, so lots of people sank and died. Because of that trend of immigration, we ended up with bigger and bigger boats, which meant we ended up with the Titanic. Because we ended up with the Titanic, we ended up with this film. So Phytophthora infestans caused Leonardo in this film. Oh, listen. Bit of theme music. Okay, but it's true. The top part of the boat is where all the posh English and Americans were. Downstairs, you've seen it, haven't you? Yeah, downstairs you have all the Irish, all that sort of stuff. What's your favourite bit? The steamed up car? It's really important. It's really important to remember that's what brought this through. We should have a movie here, but it's not working. Oh, there we go. Now, Edgar challenged me to have better music than him on this is courtesy of his lab, but this is the theme music Titanic. It's more sad than when Jack died. This is a potato plant dying. Over how many days? 4 to 8 days? There we go. 2 days, 8 days, starting 2 days after infection. The other major unforeseen consequence is that no matter what city you go to in the world, you will find an Irish bar. So this one, is anybody from Dundee, does this exist? I found this in Google, they're nodding, yeah. So this one is in the Perth Road. You go anywhere in the world, I've given this talk anywhere in the world, and I can find a local Irish bar. But surely those sorts of countrywide or indeed continent-wide epidemics can happen today. Well, the answer is yes. This is an example. These are my favorite pets, plant viruses. I'm going to give you a couple of slides which show you examples of where these epidemics can still happen today. And this is African Cassava Mosaic virus, and this particular disease broke out in the 1980s. Cassava gives you a fantastic yield when it's healthy. However, when it was infected by this virus, the yield was incredibly reduced. And this swept right across Africa. And we're still fighting against this particular virus today. And huge amounts of time and money have gone in to try and overcome this. But when you do fighting particular plant pathogens, you mustn't take your eye off because another one will come along behind it. It's a continuous battle against plant pathogens. In Science magazine, I think it was last year or the year before, they listed the top 10 pathogens, global pathogens. And this is one that came up, Cassava brown streak virus. And this particular pathogen came out of nowhere. It's been around for a long time. It's been known since 1936. We identified it, the cause, in 2001. And ever since then, it's become a serious epidemic in Africa. It wasn't our fault, by the way. We just identified it. But it's now serious. It just shows you that other pathogens can come along all the time. The battle will be continuous. Recently, for a journal, we did a survey of top 10 plant viruses globally, pathogenic bacteria, fungal, etc. But we had hundreds of nominations. There are a wide range of serious pathogens out there. And these don't even cover the nematodes, the phytoplasmas, which Saskia will be covering tomorrow. And if I don't mention the Euromycetes, Sophie and Cameroon will hit me with lightning via Twitter if I don't mention the Euromycetes as well. So what state are we in the UK for actually controlling plant pathogens? Well, we in the society were a bit worried in terms of the state of play for training and education. And scientists are dreadful gossips. And you will stand at a conference bar, at the tea, or at the water cooler, and you will chat and you will gossip. And a lot of things that we were hearing were nothing more than gossip. And we couldn't put our fingers on the exact thing that's happening in the UK. And one of the things we wanted to do first, one of the things we wanted to do in the society was get a feel for this. And this is actually what we did. We carried an audit, and if you haven't seen it, you can download it free from the BSPP website. It's a fantastic document. We contacted every institute, every university, everybody, and we actually tried to put figures on what the current state of play for UK plant pathology was. Tremendous effort by Dr. Deanne Hurd. And one of the interesting things was we noticed, this is not harking back to the past, we're always looking to the future, but certainly plant pathology has shrunk, with only 1 in 7 national higher institutes, universities, institutes giving hands-on practical training at undergraduate level right across the country, which is incredibly small. And more importantly, many of us are getting older. Many of those who remain are aged over 50, so we could be in a potential situation where we lose a lot of talent very quickly. And when we released this audit, James Brown, who was president of the society at the time, said this is important not only to our farming systems, but our environment as well. And how little did we know, we're going to try and make a big splash about this, but how little did we know that the same week we released our audit, that this thing was found in the UK, ash dieback, which of course, as you all know, produced some serious diseases on ash, put some very serious looking scientists in the fields with white coats on, and this particular one's looking very serious indeed. What's being frivolous here, I have to say, tremendous effort by John Innes Institute and the Sainsbury Labs, by FAIR at responding to this, and now the science is going to come out from Exeter and all those other groups as well. Shows you the class that we have in plant pathology in the UK. But one particular journalist asked us, had we planned this to bring attention to the audit? No, we didn't. But what it did mean is that it got coverage in every national newspaper. We all got to television interviews. If you watch BBC Countryfile, which is still on iPlayer this week, it was mentioned twice on BBC Countryfile. Now, when you get John Craven involved, you must be doing something right. We also got to meet Mr. Freeman, Mr. Willits, who took the audit, and that's a sort of top-down approach where we're looking at the policy makers. But it's important here that whilst batting for plant pathology, we were also very passionate about, it's already been mentioned, weed science, soil science, entomology. There's a series here, a batch of them, that are in a serious situation. Now, what I want to do today was we're looking at a situation where we want to recover this. So one of the things we want to do is inspire future generations. And this is really important for our society. Today's students are tomorrow's teachers. So we want to get them early. And the society did a very brave thing. They appointed the first ever outreach officer, who's Katie Tomlinson here. She's in the audience today. She'll be on the desks as well. And she will be running the society's Twitter account and Facebook. Now, those who have been on BSPP board, that is foreign language to people. Have you got a Twitter account, Ian? So they'll be running that, contacting the right sort of people. And in terms of the projects that we're doing, we're really reaching out and getting plant pathology. We want students coming through who are going to university open days and asking, where is your plant pathology element? Yeah, actually looking at it. So we wanted bringing it from bottom up. And what Kiddies going to be doing is running a series of events. We're trialing these in the Southwest because, purely and simply because Kiddies based in the Southwest, but the people driving force behind this is Murray Grant at Exeter and Rob Jackson at Reading. So what they do is they travel to Bristol, so I have to buy them lunch, and we have that as our meeting point for a lot of these activities. But the idea is that these activities will then be rolled out across the country. They'll be perfected and really rolled into a nice package to give to other plant pathologists to run right across the country. And similarly, these resources that Katie's going to be bringing together will be aimed at both primary schools and secondary schools. So this is this bottom-up type approach. We're also recruiting people in. The numbers in the outreach department have doubled. And this is very popular. A lot of you will either be or running BBSRC doctoral training programs where they have to experience 3 months worth of other type job. And we've had tremendous support in this. Claire, who's doing her PhD with Catherine Denby at Warwick, has joined us as part of her particular placement, working within the plant pathology outreach. So we've already doubled our numbers, and we think this is a good way, again, of inspiring through to the future and getting really good work experience for these students. We also strongly believe that none of this will be done in isolation. I'm sure Katie and Claire have been in contact with many people in the audience already. This is a joint fight, for lack of a better word, right across the plant sciences, be it there's no point in protecting crops against plant pathogens if there's poor soil. There's no point in protecting against plant pathogens if they're eaten by insects. It's right across the whole spectrum. So we strongly believe this BSPP outreach is not an isolated case. It's right across, and I'm actually passionate that organizations such as the Plant Science Federation, Society of Biology, can actually coordinate this really well. That forms a perfect way for this particular conference. I'm going to finish with this slide because we're suggesting we're not going to take too many questions, because I hope that you will go down, if you're interested in any way in outreach in the area of plant pathology, to talk to Katie and Claire, who are both here and will be on the education and outreach desks downstairs. I'm just the mouthpiece, a very loud mouthpiece today. They're the people doing all the hard work. So if you want to go speak to them, in fact, I strongly encourage you to go speak to them, please do so. I'm going to finish with this slide because they spent ages deciding which photograph I could show of them. Absolutely ages. The flick of the hair was perfect. So I'm going to stop there. So they'll be at the conference dinner tonight. Yes? So if you want to go and talk to them, I'll also be around if you want to talk on sort of top down, sort of talking to policymakers. I'll be at the conference dinner. After that, I'll be doing a very scientific experiment. I'll be checking how Irish is Clancy's Irish bar. Unless it's too dodgy. Maybe. Okay. Thank you very much indeed.
I think everybody in the room enjoyed that. That was marvellous. Thank you very much. I think you made a very nice point. I mean, it was wonderful how much coverage you got for the report on the state of British plant pathology. And you made a very nice point about, that we mustn't fight amongst ourselves, that weed science and soil science is important. But I think I personally feel you need to spread that out even bigger. It is all of plant science. We are a really tiny, tiny subject. And that one of the reasons is simply there isn't the research funding going in, and so universities don't want us. We cost money. We're very, very expensive to have, and there's such a small amount of research income coming in, and so we need the high ref papers that typically the Arabidopsis research gets, and we also need the very applied areas because that's where the big money can come in. And so I think we must hold our line that it is all of us together that is important and that this is an essential science. And so I thought you did great, but I just would be careful in making that message. It's not just weed and soil science, it's everybody.
No, you're absolutely right. The point I made was there's a few subject areas which are about to fall off the cliff. So plant science as a whole, I'm using as a grouping, say plant physiology, plant molecular biology, is a reasonable group and it's just surviving.
No, I don't think it is. Even that has fallen off the cliff. So we have great strength in the UK in plant molecular biology, but in a handful of centres.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
So, for example, London, luckily, London is actually, apparently, Imperial is going to start rehiring. But other than Royal Holloway, sorry. I'm going to get killed for that, right? But other than that, there are so few centres. I mean, London, if you think where our policymakers go to university, it's London, Oxford and Cambridge. And those that are going to London are not seeing plant biology. They are blind to it. None of their friends will be doing it, or very few of them, and it's a real issue.
You're absolutely right. In terms of talking about centres, we have a few centres which have got strengths, and I'm looking at Bristol. We've been hiring in our Vice-Chancellor in Bristol hobnobs a lot with the policymakers. And one of the things is environment and global food security. He is bemused. He was, for being recorded, I better be nice to him. He was chairman of Universities UK, and he was bemused at those universities closing down their plant scientists, in particular Imperial College. In terms of everything coming out from the government, etc., is telling universities that this is the area you should be in. However, when you're absolutely right, universities are after people who publish in science all the time and bring in millions, and for a while that wasn't good in plant science. However, in our field, one of the things that may well rescue us is the move towards impact. At impact, a lot of, if you're not involved in REF, but we get a lot of money from the government, but it's decided every 4 or 5 years through the REF process. Am I going on too long? Shall I shut up? I can see the look on your face going, shut up.
No, not at all. I would never be thinking that.